They gathered around old Apache Joe that scorching July afternoon in 1962, pointing and snickering at the grotesque bulge protruding from his weathered neck. The children of Broken Arrow, Arizona threw pebbles while their parents whispered cruel jokes about the strange tribal elder who wandered the desert collecting what they called worthless rocks. Little did they know that within that pulsing, mysterious lump lay a secret that would rewrite American history and expose a conspiracy buried deep in the desert sands for over a century. The town of Broken Arrow had always treated Apache Joe like a curiosity, a relic from a bygone era who seemed to exist on the fringes of their modern world. Every morning, he would shuffle through the dusty streets with his leather satchel, his dark eyes scanning the ground with an intensity that made the locals uncomfortable. The strange growth on his neck had appeared 6 months earlier, starting as a small bump that gradually swelled into something that looked almost alive, pulsing with an odd rhythm that seemed to match his heartbeat. Dr. Richard Holbrook, the town's only physician, had examined the mass twice and declared it a simple cyst, nothing more than accumulated fluid that would eventually require surgical removal. But Apache Joe refused treatment, insisting in his broken English that the spirits had placed something sacred within his flesh, something that must not be disturbed until the proper time arrived. The doctor dismissed this as primitive superstition, but there was something in the old man's eyes that suggested he knew far more than he was revealing. The mystery deepened when strange visitors began arriving in Broken Arrow. Men in expensive suits driving government plates would park outside the diner and ask casual questions about the Apache elder. They claimed to be anthropologists studying Native American culture, but their questions were oddly specific, focusing on Apache Joe's daily routines, his collection of desert stones, and particularly the unusual growth on his neck. Sarah Martinez, who worked at the local post office, noticed that these same men had been intercepting and copying Apache Joe's mail, though the old man rarely received anything except government checks. Margaret Thompson, a retired schoolteacher who had lived in Broken Arrow for 40 years, remembered stories her grandfather told about strange lights in the desert and government expeditions that came and went in the dead of night during the 1870s. She had always assumed these were tall tales until she started connecting them to Apache Joe's mysterious behavior. The old man had been collecting rocks from very specific locations, all of them corresponding to areas her grandfather had mentioned in his stories about those unexplained lights. The first hook came on a humid August evening when young Tommy Patterson decided to follow Apache Joe into the desert. The 12-year-old had been fascinated by the old man's strange ritual of visiting certain rock formations under the cover of darkness. Tommy watched from behind a creosote bush as Apache Joe approached a seemingly ordinary boulder and began pressing his swollen neck against its surface. What happened next would haunt Tommy for the rest of his life. The rock began to glow with an otherworldly blue light, and the growth on Apache Joe's neck started pulsing faster, almost vibrating with energy. The old man began speaking in a language Tommy had never heard, his voice carrying across the desert with an authority that seemed to awaken something ancient in the surrounding landscape. Strange symbols appeared on the rock's surface, glowing and shifting like living hieroglyphs that told a story of visitors from beyond the stars and a secret that had been hidden in the desert for generations. Tommy ran home and told his father, but Sheriff Patterson dismissed the story as childhood imagination fueled by too many science fiction movies. However, the boy's account reached the ears of Dr. Elizabeth Warren, a geologist from the University of Arizona who had been studying unusual mineral formations in the region. Dr. Warren had noticed electromagnetic anomalies in the exact areas where Apache Joe conducted his nightly rituals, readings that suggested the presence of materials not found naturally on Earth. The second hook arrived 3 weeks later when the government men made their move. They surrounded Apache Joe's modest trailer on the outskirts of town just after midnight, claiming they had a warrant to examine him for potential security threats. But Apache Joe was ready for them. As they approached his door, he pressed his hand to the swollen growth on his neck and whispered something in his native tongue. The mass suddenly burst open with a brilliant flash of light that temporarily blinded the agents and revealed its true contents. Inside the growth was not infected tissue or accumulated fluid, but a perfectly preserved metallic object about the size of a silver dollar, covered in the same strange symbols Tommy had seen glowing on the desert rocks. The object pulsed with its own inner light and seemed to respond to Apache Joe's touch, projecting holographic images into the night air that showed scenes of advanced civilizations and star maps pointing to distant galaxies. Dr. Warren arrived just as the government agents were trying to seize the artifact, and what she witnessed would change her understanding of human history forever. The metallic object was clearly of non-human origin, composed of materials that defied conventional physics and containing information storage capabilities far beyond anything developed by terrestrial science. More shocking still was Apache Joe's revelation that his tribe had been guardians of this technology for over 200 years, passing down the sacred duty through bloodlines chosen specifically for their compatibility with the alien device. The truth began to unfold like a nightmare that had been festering in the desert for decades. In 1872, a craft from another world had crashed in the remote canyons outside what would become Broken Arrow. The Apache tribes who witnessed the event understood that they were dealing with visitors from the stars, beings of immense knowledge who had traveled vast distances to reach Earth. Most of the craft's occupants had perished in the crash, but they had managed to preserve their most important knowledge in small, biocompatible devices designed to merge with organic hosts. Apache Joe's grandfather had been chosen as the first guardian, allowing one of these devices to integrate with his nervous system and create a symbiotic relationship that would preserve the alien knowledge for future generations. The growth on Apache Joe's neck was not a medical condition but a biological storage system, a living archive that contains star charts, advanced scientific principles, and warnings about humanity's future that the dying aliens had deemed essential for Earth's survival. The government had known about the crash site since the 1870s, but had been unable to locate the preserved alien technology despite decades of searching. They had monitored Apache Joe's family for generations, waiting for signs that the biological storage system was ready to reveal its secrets. The timing was not random, Apache Joe explained to Dr. Warren as they fled from the pursuing agents. The alien device had been programmed to activate only when humanity reached a critical point in its technological development, a moment when the preserved knowledge would be most needed to prevent global catastrophe. Sheriff Patterson found himself caught between his duty to federal authorities and his growing realization that Apache Joe represented something far more important than a local eccentric. The old man's predictions about weather patterns, geological events, and even human behavior had been uncannily accurate over the years, details that now made perfect sense given his access to advanced alien science. The sheriff made the difficult decision to help Apache Joe and Dr. Warren evade capture, recognizing that the knowledge contained in the biological device might be humanity's only hope for navigating the challenges that lay ahead. The chase through the Arizona desert became a deadly game of cat and mouse, with government helicopters and tracking teams pursuing the unlikely trio across terrain that Apache Joe knew better than anyone alive. The old man led them to hidden caves and ancient settlements, places where his ancestors had concealed additional alien artifacts over the centuries. Each location revealed more pieces of the incredible puzzle, showing that the 1872 crash had been part of a larger plan to seed human civilization with the knowledge necessary for eventual contact with galactic civilizations. Dr. Warren documented everything she could, recording Apache Joe's explanations of the alien technology and its implications for human science. The biological storage device had given him access to advanced principles of physics, medicine, and environmental science that could solve many of Earth's most pressing problems. But the aliens had also included dire warnings about the misuse of their technology, cautioning that premature military applications could lead to planetary destruction. The government agents closing in on them represented exactly the kind of threat the aliens had feared. Led by Colonel Marcus Steele, a man who saw the alien technology purely in terms of weapons potential and strategic advantage, they were determined to weaponize the knowledge rather than use it for humanity's benefit. Colonel Steele had spent 20 years tracking down rumors of extraterrestrial contact, building a secret program designed to exploit any alien technology for military purposes regardless of the consequences. As they reached the final hidden sanctuary deep in the desert canyons, Apache Joe made a revelation that stunned both Dr. Warren and Sheriff Patterson. He was not the only guardian. Scattered across the American Southwest were dozens of others, members of various Native American tribes who carried similar biological storage devices. They had been waiting for a signal from Apache Joe's device, a sign that the time had come to share their preserved knowledge with the wider world. The network of guardians represented one of the most sophisticated preservation systems ever devised, with each biological storage unit containing different aspects of the alien civilization's accumulated wisdom. Some held medical knowledge that could cure diseases and extend human lifespan. Others contained environmental technologies that could reverse climate change and restore damaged ecosystems. And still others preserved the secrets of interstellar travel and communication with distant civilizations. Colonel Steele's forces finally cornered them at an ancient Apache sacred site, but what they found there defied all their expectations. The moment Apache Joe activated his biological storage device in the presence of the other Guardians, the entire canyon began to transform. Hidden machinery left by the aliens came online for the first time in 2 centuries, creating a communication array capable of reaching across the galaxy to signal that humanity was finally ready for contact. The confrontation that followed would determine the fate of human civilization. Colonel Steele ordered his men to seize the alien technology by force, but the Guardians had prepared for this possibility. The biological storage devices could not be removed without killing their hosts, and any attempt to do so would trigger a failsafe that would destroy all the preserved knowledge. The aliens had designed their preservation system to prevent exactly the kind of military exploitation that Colonel Steele represented. Dr. Warren found herself in the unique position of being humanity's first official ambassador to an alien intelligence that existed only as preserved knowledge. Through Apache Joe and the other Guardians, she was able to communicate with the collective consciousness of the alien civilization, learning about their history, their journey to Earth, and their hopes for humanity's future. The experience was overwhelming, expanding her understanding of the universe and humanity's place within it beyond anything she had imagined possible. The aliens revealed that Earth was not alone in facing the challenges of technological adolescence. Civilizations across the galaxy had reached similar crossroads, moments when they had to choose between using their knowledge for mutual benefit or allowing it to be corrupted by those who sought power over others. The biological storage devices represented their attempt to guide humanity toward the more enlightened path, but the choice ultimately remained with humans themselves. Sheriff Patterson realized that his small town had become the center of the most important event in human history. The decision made in this remote Arizona canyon would echo across generations, determining whether humanity would join a galactic community of civilizations or destroy itself with misused alien technology. The weight of responsibility was staggering, but he understood that sometimes ordinary people found themselves called upon to make extraordinary choices. The climax came when Colonel Steele attempted to forcibly extract Apache Joe's biological storage device, triggering the alien failsafe system. The preserved knowledge began downloading directly into Dr. Warren's consciousness, making her a temporary repository for information that could transform human civilization. She experienced visions of possible futures, some showing humanity spreading peacefully across the stars, others depicting the planet reduced to radioactive wasteland by wars fought with alien weapons. Apache Joe's sacrifice saved both the knowledge and humanity's future. As the biological device completed its final data transfer, he used his last moments of consciousness to activate the alien communication array, sending a signal across the galaxy that Earth was ready for peaceful contact. The message contained not military capabilities or technological specifications, but examples of human art, music, and literature, demonstrating that humanity possessed the wisdom and compassion necessary to handle advanced knowledge responsibly. The aftermath of these events remained classified for decades, but their impact rippled through human society in ways both subtle and profound. Dr. Warren dedicated her life to carefully introducing the alien knowledge through seemingly natural scientific discoveries, ensuring that each breakthrough would benefit all humanity rather than being monopolized by military or corporate interests. The network of Guardians continued their sacred duty, waiting for the day when open contact with galactic civilizations would finally be possible. The strange growth on Apache Joe's neck had indeed changed everything, just not in the way the townspeople of Broken Arrow had expected. Their cruel laughter had been silenced by the revelation that they had been living alongside one of humanity's greatest treasures, a bridge between Earth and the stars that would guide our species toward a future beyond their wildest dreams. The old Apache man they had dismissed as a curiosity had been humanity's secret guardian, carrying the hope of civilizations across the galaxy in a biological vault that pulsed with the heartbeat of cosmic wisdom. The years that followed Apache Joe's sacrifice transformed not just Broken Arrow, but quietly reshaped the trajectory of human civilization itself. Dr. Elizabeth Warren returned to the University of Arizona carrying secrets that would take her decades to carefully introduce to the world. She published groundbreaking papers on renewable energy, medical breakthroughs, and environmental restoration, each discovery seemingly emerging from conventional research but actually drawn from the vast repository of alien knowledge now stored within her enhanced consciousness. Sheriff Patterson kept the official reports classified, but he could never forget what he had witnessed in that desert canyon. He watched as his small town gradually attracted new residents, scientists and researchers who seemed drawn by an inexplicable sense that something important had happened there. The government agents who had pursued Apache Joe were reassigned to distant posts, their memories of the events officially deemed classified beyond their security clearance, though Colonel Steele spent his remaining years obsessively searching for traces of the alien technology he had lost. Tommy Patterson, now a grown man with children of his own, became an advocate for Native American rights and environmental protection. He never spoke publicly about what he had seen that night in the desert, but his passion for preserving ancient wisdom and protecting sacred lands was fueled by his understanding of how much humanity owed to guardians like Apache Joe. He established a foundation that quietly supported the remaining network of tribal guardians, ensuring they would never again face the poverty and ridicule that had made Apache Joe's sacrifice necessary. The alien communication array, hidden deep within the desert canyon, continued transmitting its message across the galaxy long after Apache Joe's death. Advanced civilizations light years away received humanity's first peaceful greeting, a signal that demonstrated our species' capacity for art, compassion, and wisdom rather than our capability for warfare and destruction. The response, when it finally came decades later, arrived not as ships in the sky but as subtle influences on human creativity and scientific discovery, gentle guidance that helped steer our development toward the enlightened path the ancient aliens had hoped we would choose. Dr. Warren lived to see many of the alien predictions come true. Climate change technologies emerged just when they were most desperately needed, medical breakthroughs extended human lifespan while improving quality of life for billions, and advances in physics opened new frontiers in space exploration that brought humanity closer to its destiny among the stars. Each breakthrough was carefully timed and introduced through multiple independent research teams, creating the appearance of natural scientific progress while actually representing the systematic revelation of knowledge preserved for centuries in biological vaults. Margaret Thompson, the retired schoolteacher who had first connected Apache Joe's behavior to her grandfather's stories, spent her final years documenting the oral histories of the American Southwest. She interviewed elderly Native Americans from dozens of tribes, slowly piecing together a hidden narrative of contact and guardianship that stretched back generations. Her unpublished manuscript, kept in a safety deposit box in Phoenix, would eventually become a roadmap for future researchers seeking to understand humanity's secret relationship with the stars. The town of Broken Arrow erected a modest memorial to Apache Joe near the spot where he had conducted his nightly rituals, though the inscription spoke only of his service to his people and his dedication to preserving traditional knowledge. Visitors often remarked on the unusual electromagnetic readings in the area and the strange way desert wildlife seemed to gather around the memorial at sunset, as if paying respect to something they instinctively understood was sacred. Sarah Martinez, who had worked at the post office and noticed the government surveillance, eventually became the town's unofficial historian. She maintained careful records of the unusual events surrounding Apache Joe's final years, creating an archive that would help future generations understand the true significance of what had occurred in their quiet Arizona community. Her files contained photographs of the strange visitors, copies of intercepted correspondence, and detailed timelines that revealed the scope of the government's long-term monitoring operation. The biological storage devices carried by the other guardians continued to activate according to their predetermined schedules, each one releasing its specific knowledge when humanity reached the appropriate level of development to safely utilize it. Advances in genetics, environmental science, and quantum physics appeared with suspicious regularity among researchers who had no direct connection to each other, but who all reported sudden insights that seemed to come from beyond their own understanding. As the 21st century progressed, the descendants of the original guardians found new ways to honor their ancestors' sacrifice while preparing for humanity's eventual open contact with galactic civilizations. They established research institutions, cultural preservation programs, and educational initiatives that slowly introduced the concept of humanity's cosmic heritage without revealing the full extent of what their families had protected for generations. Dr. Warren's protégés, trained in the careful art of introducing revolutionary knowledge without triggering dangerous military applications, spread across the globe to positions of influence in universities, research laboratories, and international organizations. They formed an invisible network of guidance, ensuring that humanity's technological advancement would be balanced by corresponding growth in wisdom and moral understanding. The strange lump that had once protruded from Apache Joe's neck had contained more than alien technology. It had held the hopes and dreams of civilizations that had faced their own moments of choice between wisdom and destruction. Their gift to humanity was not just knowledge, but the example of how advanced societies could transcend their primitive impulses and join a community of worlds dedicated to peaceful exploration and mutual understanding. In the end, those who had laughed at Apache Joe's strange burden would never know that their cruelty had been witnessed by consciousness that spanned galaxies, or that their ignorance had nearly cost humanity its place among the stars. But their children and grandchildren would inherit a world transformed by the wisdom that had pulsed silently within that grotesque growth. A world where humanity's reach would eventually extend beyond Earth to touch the infinite possibilities that awaited among distant suns. The desert where Apache Joe had walked his lonely vigil still holds its secrets, but it no longer waits in silence. The wind that moves through the canyon carries the whispers of civilizations beyond counting, and sometimes, on clear nights when the stars seem unusually bright, travelers report seeing lights in the sky that move with purpose and intelligence, as if checking on the progress of the small blue world that had finally learned to listen to the cosmic voices calling from the darkness between worlds.